The next thing that we are going to have now is an opening remarks from PASGR, and this will be done by Mr. Otieno. He's the research, he's the program officer, research and policy for PASGR. He's coming here to give us a brief address. After that, we listen to the governor through his representative.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ojebwe. And thank you all attendees for coming in this morning to be part of this validation workshop today. Good morning, all of you. I believe you are all well, and I know that some of us have traveled long distance to come here this morning, so we do not take that for granted. We really want to appreciate your attendance and appreciate that I can see more you in the room, which is why we're gathered here. I want to speak, for a few minutes and describe why this research is important. I know Dr. Ojebwe has presented why the Nigeria component is important, but I wanted to talk about the research at large. The continent of Africa has the youngest youth population. We know that, right? Nigeria is one of the countries that is considered to be mostly populated by young people. Young people, that is, I mean, below the age of 35. But there's a common problem that with the youth bulge, there is also limited opportunities for young people, especially when we talk about employment and, in certain circumstances, entrepreneurship, right? And so what happens is this population that is growing requires action to be taken so that opportunities for employment can be made available for our young people. And some of us who are finishing school and getting into the job market every year, how do we see the gap between the available opportunities but also the competencies that we have on the continent? Today we are in Nigeria, and this is a continental initiative to bridge gaps in youth employment. And so my organization, the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research, has partnered with the MasterCard Foundation to generate this evidence and understand what we call the aspirations and goals and motivations of young people in an effort to find pathways for their employment and engagement in finding dignified and fulfilling work. Are we there? As you understand, the MasterCard Foundation is implementing an ambitious strategy of providing 30 million jobs to young people by 2030. And these jobs are to go mostly to young women because of the gendered understanding of the employment dynamics on the continent. But that does not mean that the men are left behind. It only means that there is a special focus on women than what? Than men. But the idea is to scale up opportunities for all you. Are we there? So this, what it means is, as part of this initiative, you are privileged and we are honored by your presence to be part of this research. It is an initiative that had begun a long time ago. We started the project in 2021, This is 2023, end of it. And so it means we are at the tail end of finalizing the evidence that we've received from this work and trying to come up with concrete recommendations for achieving that goal. So your participation in this work is important. I know some of you participate in the data collection for the work, either as a respondent or as a research assistant, right? And you are familiar with this. But also it brings me to what we call in our PASGR, Utafiti Sera. And it's all, what it means is, when this project began, an Utafiti Sera house was created. And this was to enable interactions, consultations between the research team, but also young people, different government organizations, and representatives. So that together, there can be concrete evidence to present as part of resolving the youth unemployment challenge. So the research team has done an amazing job to collect data, synthesize it, and bring out evidence. But this is a very intricate process that evidence requires to be validated and to be taken back to communities to interact with it. And so this session today is part of what we call at PASGR, taking research back to communities. Are we there? So that you can engage with this research. Sorry. So that you can critique the work that has come out, and that you can provide additional evidence to what has already been done before it can be conceptualized, finalized, and presented as authentic and views of young people in Nigeria. So if you're sitting in this room this morning, count it a great honor to be part of a continental initiative that will change your own life, but if it doesn't do that directly, it can change the life of another young person that you know, right? It can also change the life of another young person that is living in this country and is in need of that job that will unlock opportunities for them. The idea is that young people in the continent need to live a dignified and fulfilling lives, and that they cannot do without jobs. They cannot do that without ensuring that these are not just jobs, but jobs that young people can invest their time and desire to do for a longer period in their lives. And so we are understanding that most of young people in the continent require or desire to do business, what we call entrepreneurship. They desire to own their own ventures. They desire to run their own businesses, whether in shops or investment or whatever kind of businesses. Or some still require, desire to get into employment. And so once we understand all these different lines and domains, what it happens is that this will inform policies, will inform programs, and will also inform dialogues within policy-making bodies. As I said, the MasterCard Foundation is intentional in that they are not just collecting views for the sake of it. They are already doing what it requires, and these insights are refining their mode of delivery of that initiative. Are we there? Yeah. And so we need to understand that this is not a normal research environment. This is a development initiative to uplift our countries and to bring the youth in Nigeria to find dignified and fulfilling work. In your own time, you can Google Africa Youth Work Strategy. In your own time, you can see what the MasterCard is doing, but also understand that the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research has become the vital plug in understanding the aspirations, the motivations, and resilient strategies of young people on the continent. This work is part of work that is happening in 6 other countries: Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Senegal. And so Nigeria is being part of it. If I had time, I would have emphasized what Prof has just presented, but we understand that Nigeria has one of the largest youth populations on the continent. And so it means they sit integral to the youth, to the MasterCard's Young Africa Work Strategy. So we need to find how do we plug in and support young people in Africa. MasterCard has several initiatives. Some go into expanding skills in terms of offering scholarships and training mentorship, but also in terms of supporting direct initiatives that lift young people from and support their transition from school to work. And that means either supporting their businesses or supporting their transition and getting dignified and fulfilling work. So I want to take this opportunity to really thank you for coming in. But before that, I want to direct you back to this note, because you have it. And in this note is presented a summary of what the research has revealed. And part of it is going to be the discussion today, or the conversations that we will have the entire day. If you look at it, you will realize that at the back page of where the background is written, the team is presenting key findings of the study. Those are divided in the following subheadings: youthhood and aspirations, youth perspectives on dignified and fulfilling work, barriers of youth aspirations in Nigeria, and we have youth resilience and adaptability strategies. I invite you to read this and interact with this presentation, because the next sessions will involve us trying to understand deeper what does these things mean and what we see from the research. And much of the response will come from you in providing or trying to understand whether these illustrations are true and reflect your own experiences as young people in Nigeria. I'm aware that in this room there are policymakers, there are government people who are also working with young people. And so your views are equally important to the validation exercise. I invite all of you to pay attention to the conversations and to make this an interactive session today. Please speak your views as a way of understanding each other. If you feel that in your table, your neighbor has something to say, and they are becoming afraid to carry their hands, please have the responsibility to carry your hand on their behalf. Are we there? And carry their hand and ask the question. Ask them to now ask the question confidently. If you feel that you have something to say and you do not want to represent it yourself, please tell it to your neighbor and let them represent it for you. But what we need is authentic criticism, or rather authentic critique to the evidence, and also your views, because these are going to be important in finalizing the Nigeria country report and being part of the decision that should take place after this exercise. With those few remarks, I want to really thank you again for making it today and also being lively in the morning, and I look forward to an engaging session during the day. Thank you very much.
Now we have listened to Pastor. He has further elaborated on my explanation, the background I gave. And at least gradually, we are getting to understand the purpose for this gathering and even this study. By the time you listen to more presentations, there will be more involved, and then we'll have the direction of our discussion. What we want from you, and how we are going to go about it. Now I have the pleasure to invite the governor of Oyo State, who is represented by the Special Assistant on Youth Matter, Mr. Victor Olojede, to speak to us. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Senior Special Assistant. You can hear me? Okay. So I said my name is Victor Olojede. I'm Senior Special Assistant to the Governor of Oyo State Student Affairs. First of all, I want to thank the organizers of this great workshop, the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research, in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation, for bringing up this project for the development of youth in Africa, and especially for capturing Nigeria to be a part of this research and the project. I also want to thank my lecturer and my father when I was an undergraduate student. But he still remains my father because after I left the University of Ibadan, I had a much more beautiful relationship than when I was in the university, because while I was in the university it was a bit more strict to me, but now we have a better relationship. When I got the invite for this event, I'd come for the first event that happened sometimes last year. Policy makers, students, the end users of the policy were also at the event, at the workshop where we discussed certain issues. And I'm here again today to also be a part of this workshop. And when I read through the letter that came through to me, he mentioned that in the letter there's a part that says that I should share my own experiences, and also I would also now eventually give you information on what the governor and the government of Oyo State is doing in bringing about some solutions to the problem youth are encountering in Nigeria and Oyo State as part of Nigeria. So, I graduated from the University of Ibadan in 2015. I studied communication and language arts. And for people who know me, who are here, who know me, would know that when I was an undergraduate student in the University of Ibadan, instead of me focusing so much on my studies, I decided to focus so much on being a student politician and getting involved in student election for campus. Well, it affected my academic performance as an undergraduate student in the University of Ibadan. So when I said Dr. Dewey was more strict on me, it was not strict because he hated me. He was strict on me because he wanted me to come out with best of grades as an undergraduate student in the University of Ibadan. But while I focused more on that, my grades were having a lot of issues. And so when I got to my final year, there were certain decisions that I had to make. One, I already seen that my grades will not overly go up, although I was praying in the miraculous could happen. I remember several times I go behind the trap for the direction to just tell God, let there be a miracle, let the project windows change from 40 to 70 or something like that. Yeah, but maybe God answered and maybe God didn't answer. And then I finished with a a grade that I do not in any way hide from telling people. So I finished with the top class from the University of Ibadan. I remember finishing with the top class and I took my results to meet my dad. And the first thing my dad told me, so before I left the University of Ibadan, I thought that, okay, my dad is this, you should be able to just call somebody and say, my son needs a job, and then I'll get a job. So I went to meet my dad, and my dad told me that, one, and he said it in Yoruba, and I will translate in English, and he said that I cannot look for a job for you, I cannot get a job, because he was not even ready to tell his friends that his son finished with the top class. So that had already put me out of the fact that I could get a job. But before I left the University of Ibadan, the Department of Communication and Language were having events for us undergraduates who were about to graduate, and it was life after school. For me, I took that life after school very serious. And before I graduated from the University of Ibadan, I started thinking of what would I do when I finish or I graduate from the University of Ibadan. And so, for many of my colleagues who were brilliant, the best in class, I'm not so certainly sure that certain persons also look into the fact that what is life for them outside school. And I usually tell people that people with the best of academic performance have a sense, a entitlement mentality that says that because I have done well in school, I must get a job. And for some of us who we have the worst of academic result, we believe that because I've not had the best of results, there's no job coming for me, so I must create an alternative means of getting a job. So maybe that was what helped me in my own journey, in my struggle as a young Nigerian and as a youth in Nigeria. And I remember there was a time I was supposed to, so while I was in the University of Ibadan, the University of Ibadan gave me a lot of opportunity. I remember, and I also want to use this moment again to thank Dr. Olojede, because I remember there was a time I was supposed to write my exams in the University of Ibadan, and at that time I was supposed to represent the University of Ibadan at the Euro-African Youth Parliament, and he was my course coordinator and exam officer at that time. He was able to shift the exam calendar for me to be able to attend. Can you give me a round of applause? And so for me, when I was leaving school and the department was already doing programs for us to enlighten us on life after school, the first thing I did when I left school, when my dad already told me, oh, Berisha, I picked up photography, did photography for a bit, made little money from it. And for me, because I discovered that, oh, there was money in photography, I jumped into it. But there's a challenge, and that is one challenge many young person like myself have. Oh, photography is lucrative, everybody goes into it. And then for some of us, we do not get the requisite skill to sustain us in that business. So we are in photography for a period of time, and then we cannot sustain it, and then we eventually chicken out, or we don't find our feet anymore in it. So at a point, because I did not get the best of training for photography and being able to, and sometimes when you want to get, which is one of the problems the young Nigerians are having, is that even when you want to get the best of the training, you pay a lot of money to get the best of the training. I have a younger brother who I'm currently working on certain stuff with, and just because I needed a therapist to attend to him on certain issues, the therapist is charging me about 25,000 per session to speak with him. So at the end of, let's say he speaks with him every day, that's 25,000 times 7 days is a huge amount of money. How many persons can afford such money to get somebody to help them in structuring some part of their life? So what we are left with is either we get interventions like that of the partnership with MasterCard or get intervention from government. And one of the challenges again we also have is that government on the other end also, they are trying their best, but they do not at all time fix the really challenging situation that the young Nigeria is going through. So somebody just wake up in the morning and says, okay, we can do this. And then they do it, but may not necessarily affect or bring about the necessary solution they have. I also wanted to mention that I remember that at the time, after I left photography, I wanted to travel out of the country, and then, so when I was in the University of Ibadan, that was what I wanted to say. The University of Ibadan used to sponsor all my trips. If I wanted to go for a conference, all I needed to do was to write through my department to the Vice Chancellor. And because I was a student activist, the university felt that, okay, for student activism, what we call them, sit down, they sit down. The university will say, okay, just bring what you want. So, when I was in the University of Ibadan, I could travel for conferences sponsored by the University of Ibadan. But immediately after I left the University of Ibadan, the university could no longer sponsor this stuff. So I was left to handle this for myself. And I remember I wanted to travel. One of my big brother, who is very rich, told me that I was going to pay for everything. And I got to the airport, I started calling him, and he didn't pick my call. And at that point, I needed a solution to this problem. So I met with my dad, and I told my dad that, sir, I can't continue this with me. The issue, I need money, and I cannot, because of family background, I cannot do cyber crime. I needed a right alternative. So one of the things that will also affect the young Nigerian is also parenting. If a child cannot have access to speak to his parent or right advices, there's no, because of that, I can jump and talk to my dad about anything. And my dad will also help me with necessary advice that will help me. And I told my dad that, and he said, I can't continue this. And he said, okay, well, there's an opportunity here if you can supply sand. That's procurement of sand, granite, and the like. I said, well, I'll try my best. And so, one of the issues in Nigeria also is the capital to start a business. How do I have the capital to start acquiring business, to supply granite to various places? So, for example, if you meet the construction work going on and you meet them and say, oh, I can supply granite for you, if not that you are recommended by somebody who is maybe a part of the team, the government tell you, okay, we'll give you the job, but go and supply it. When you get to Rapsport, for example, Rapsport will not give you granite for free to have to pay. So what the only other alternative you have is to partner with some persons to get it done. So another program is Nigeria is facing the issue of partnership, partnering with the right set of people in resolving the day-to-day challenges. So when my dad told me about the fact that there's this opportunity, what I had to do was to go to the quarry and meet up with somebody at the quarry. I told the person that, you see, we can become business partners. I can make you rich overnight. I have an opportunity here. Can we do the business together? Now, this person already has the necessary funding at the quarry already. So what we did was that I did the job. He supplies the material to the places where I need them, and then he makes his own money, I make my money. And from there, moving on, I've done several other stuff. But one thing I've discovered is that if there are no opportunities for financial support for development, it might be difficult for the young Nigerian, the youth of our country, to be able to do a lot of stuff. Now, we do not have all the jobs in Nigeria. But for example, in Oyo State, the governor of Oyo State created jobs through Tescom, and for the first time in the history of Oyo State, we do not have to know anybody before we will get that job. And that's one thing we do here in Oyo State. The Oyo State government would always prioritize the best. So you don't have to know a politician somewhere, you don't have to know with your Olojede before you can get a job. As long as you can, as long as you pass the requisite screening to get the job, you will get the job. Now, I also want to mention that it is quite important as we have policy makers here, we have people in the country, or stakeholders here, that one of the solutions to the problem of the Nigerian youth is to make policies that will work for the Nigerian youth. And in making those policies for the Nigerian youth, it should be the Nigerian youth that will be involved in making this policy. Not that some person do not know where the issues lie, will be the one sit down in some room and making decisions for the Nigerian. And one of the good things the president of Nigeria has done is to appoint youthful persons to be minister for youth development and state youth development in the country. So we believe strongly that the Ministry of Youth of the Federation will be able to, and then the president also separated those ministries so that before it used to be youth and sport, now we now have the Ministry of Youth, so that issues related to the Nigerian youth can be resolved. I've told people on several occasions that the Nigerian government is doing a lot, but the Nigerian youth have little access to information. There are a lot of projects ongoing because I was driving through Samanda some few days back, and I saw 2 containers from the Ministry of Youth and Sport, and at that time I saw the Dari was the Minister for Youth. And it's a youth empowerment project where youth were given containers where you can have a container made by government. You just put it somewhere, you do your barbing salon there, do this, do that. But that's the first time I'm seeing that. And this project were commissioned, were unveiled, and I'm sure it was little or no person that had access to getting those opportunities. In fact, the place where I saw that stuff was in the front yard of a politician. So these are the people who have access to this opportunity, and it's affecting the Nigerian. I also want to mention about when Dr. Jomi was talking, he mentioned about the issue of cybercrime, Yahoo in the country. Now, one of the challenges we are having is that yes, truly there are no jobs, people need opportunity to work. And some youth have given the excuses that because there are no jobs, and that's the reason why they've gone into cybercrime. Well, for me, I do not believe in totality that that should be the next option. And so how do we curb the excesses of financial fraud, Yahoo in the country? You see, and the problem of Nigeria is not just from leadership, it's from bottom to top. I say it every time. So for example, if a boy of 17 or 16 comes to a car dealer to buy a car, and the car dealer is not asking, how did you make your money? But because the car dealer has to make his own money, he doesn't care, he sells the car to the young boy. So what do we do as Nigerians? We need to make policies that will also ensure that before you can even have access to buy a car, there will be certain age gap for it. And then maybe you have to have, I know in some countries, you have your ID card. Before you do any financial transaction, you have to present your identity card. So your ID card will present to whoever you are dealing with that, oh, this is who this person is, and it maybe the person can afford to get what he or she is demanding for. So for example, we've seen videos on the internet where young boys of 15 go into an hotel with a young girl. And the hotel owner, because he has to make money, he also has to pay tax, he wants to also do go and bed in his own village or whatever, would not bother to ask how and why will a young boy of this age come to this place. So there must be policies that will bring about steady reduction in activities that would empower or enable financial and economic crime. So if all these are put in place, I can assure you that then we can divert or redirect the minds of this young youth into dignified jobs. In Oyo State here today, the governor of Oyo State is trying his best to make sure that we empower the youth in Oyo State. And one of the projects the Oyo State government has embarked upon is the Oyo State Youth Entrepreneurship in Agri-Business Project. It's a project where youth are being taken to and being trained on agri-business for a couple of months. And I understand the fact that people will say, oh, is this project sustainable? These people have gone for the training, they are back from the training, they've not gotten anything out of the training. So the government also has opened the other side of that project to see that the youths who have gone for those training are also empowered to be able to do agri-business. I'm sure some of us will also know the Oyo State Investment Partnership Agency, OICPA. The agency is established by government to help to bring about investment into the state, but also help the Oyo State youth. And so the OICPA agency gives loan to young Nigerians, youths who have businesses who need grants to set up their businesses or to expand their businesses. So the truth of the matter is that, like I said, I'm seeing my sister there in being amazed or surprised about what I mentioned because nobody has that information. So I've said this over and over and over again. Information is the challenge. There are a lot of opportunity. I've had family friends who did not study in Nigeria, who did medicine in Russia, in Ukraine, and some other country, and their parents did not pay a kobo to send them to school. And this is because their parents were working in the federal ministry, and when those information come, they just all grab it in the federal ministry and they use it for themselves. So there are a lot of opportunity for Nigerians, but we do not have the information about those stuff. So one of the things that is very, very important is information gathering. So for us also as Nigerians, we must also endeavor to get the necessary information about this stuff. So recently also, the government in our pre-budget and budget defense, the governor recently just added a 1 billion naira finance for youth empowerment and development into the budget of the 2024. So from 2024 there will be projects from the Ministry of Youth for youth development, for youth empowerment through the Ministry of Youth and Sport. So for those who are interested, they should from time to time go to the ministry, and then I work in the government. You can also reach out to me. My office is in the Ministry of Youth and Sports in the Secretariat, and we are open for development and we are ready to support. And that's one thing I know about this government. The government of Otieno is ready to support the Oyo State youth. During the NSAS, the government got a grant of 500 million. I'm not so sure. And it was said openly, the governor said it, told the youth, I'm not so sure many Oyo State youth even had the access. Not because the money was not there, the grant was there, but people do not, because we already have this stereotype of that government will not do anything. And then people do not go to government to seek support. I want to give you these assurances that Omitutu 2.0 of Engineer Oluseyi Makinde. We will assist more youth, we will create more jobs, we will put up more opportunities for development of Oyo State. Thank you so much, and God bless.